You speak really well, really well. You speak Italian normally, like if it was his language.
When Kobe was 7, he got his first leather basketball. It became his constant companion. He even slept with it. But finding a game was tough, unless the game was soccer.
13 guys would show up and come down to the court ready to play soccer because they would have the soccer post right underneath the basket. So I would just stay there and play. Then when they finished, I started playing basketball again.
Joe and Kobe kept tabs on their favorite NBA teams by watching videotapes. Kobe studied these by the hour, trying to memorize the moves of his favorite players.
Magic, he was the top one. You know, when Michael was coming up, I didn't like him too much, because I was a Magic fan.
Kobe hung out with Joe's Italian League teams. It was like a correspondence school in basketball.
Every time the players stopped their training, Kobe would immediately jump on the basketball court. He would get the ball that he always had in his hands and would start shooting. At the end of every game here in Pistoia, I remember that Kobe, going on court, would steal the ball from the last player that had it in his hands, because he wanted to practice his shots. The audience would sometimes stay longer only to watch him, a 12-year-old boy shooting at the basket.
In campo.
On the basketball court, his personality was very strong. For example, he rarely passed the ball to the other players, but he usually made the basket, so he had a good reason not to give the ball away.
In 1991, Joe Bryant retired from basketball and brought his family home to Philadelphia. That November, while scanning the sports section, Kobe was surprised to see Magic missing from the Laker lineup.
The next morning, my mother comes in and tells me he's HIV positive. I was like, dang. What does that mean? You know, can he play? Is he gonna be all right? And so she had to explain everything to me. And that broke my heart.
Because of the HIV virus that I have attained, I will have to retire from the Lakers.
Magic's retirement spelled the end for Lakers Showtime. It would be 9 years before a kid from Italy would help bring it back. In 1991, Joe Bryant brought his family back from Italy to live in Philadelphia, where he'd once played with the Sixers. His son Kobe had spent the last 7 years of his life as an outsider in a foreign land. Now he found himself a stranger in his hometown.
Most of the time I didn't understand what people were talking about because they used to speak slang all the time. Like we'd go home, and I say, what does it mean when somebody says, yo, why you sweating me? What the hell is he talking about? What does he mean by that?
But when it came to Kobe's basketball talent, nothing was lost in the translation.
Basketball is universal. No matter what you spoke, if you can go out there and play, it just didn't matter. You know what I mean? You was going to fit in no matter what.
There was a big buzz in the town about a 13-year-old who was playing at our middle school. And after 5 minutes, I turned to my assistant coaches and said, this kid's a pro.
Philadelphia's a big basketball city. There were a bunch of guys my age who already had an established reputation of being the top players. So I had to come in and prove myself to them.
Given Kobe's game, he had no trouble proving himself. But making friends was another story.
He was popular from afar and likable, but he's very guarded. He's very careful with who he lets in.
He played ball. The ball was his best friend. Weekend nights when he was younger, he didn't go to parties or hang out. He played ball.
He'd be like a senior in high school playing at a middle school. Nobody could touch him. Nobody could stop him.
In the fall of 1992, Kobe started at Lower Merion High School. He was 6'2", and the finest prospect his coaches had ever seen.
We heard there was a former ball player's son coming in. Supposedly he was a pretty decent, flashy player. And there was this tall, skinny kid, around 6'4", 87 pounds it seemed. He was wearing his father's Italian uniform, stuff with Le Coq Sportif on his shirt and whatnot. It was awkward, but as soon as he stepped on the court, you knew what he was all about.
One thing that made it almost easy to coach Kobe, and I think maybe instantaneously gain the respect of his teammates, was his work ethic.
He would practice more than anybody else that I ever saw at high school. I come into the facility early in the morning, 5:45 or so, and I'd hear the thumping of the basketball. I went upstairs and there was Kobe doing drills.
I would stay late after practice and I would work on a particular aspect of my game. Then we go out into the game, I would see it paying off. And that was the most important thing to me. Because you can spend hours working in the game, but if you don't have the confidence and those skills to execute them during the game, then they mean nothing.
Lower Merion High's basketball team had been nothing to shout about for half a century. But now, with a new kid from Italy, the team started to draw.
It started off, we were playing in front of maybe 100 people, our parents, maybe a few of our friends and this and that. And as he got older and as we got better, the crowd started to fill up.
We went from having 200 or 300 people at a boys basketball game to having 1,500, and it became fever pitch.
We won 20 games when he was a sophomore. You would look at Kobe as an opposing coach when he was in 10th grade and say, oh my God, I've got to deal with this for 2 more years.
In Kobe's junior year, Lower Merion went to the state tournament but lost in the second round. The loss left Kobe devastated, but determined.
One thing I'll never forget Kobe saying was, I'm not allowing this to happen again.
So it's almost comical to hear him say this. So we were kind of just like, Kobe, relax, it's not your fault, and all that. But he took it personally and said that he'd win the title the next year.
The next year, Kobe kept his promise. Lower Merion went all the way, winning the Pennsylvania State Championship for the first time in 53 years. Kobe was named All-American High School Player of the Year.